Welcome to the Story Tinker Podcast, a place for in-depth analysis of webtoon stories. Co-hosted by sharp, witty, and dare I say thirsty fans, we dive deep into every episode, analyzing character struggles, relationship development, and of course, theories. You can follow the Story Tinker on YouTube, podcast platforms, and social media. For bonus content, sneak peeks, and more, you can support the Story Tinker on Patreon. We are really appreciative of your likes, subscribes, and follows on all platforms. Thank you for listening to the Story Tinker, and let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 45 of the Purple Hyacinth podcast on the Story Tinker called Misdirected Mission. And today we have Bundin, Vita, and Firedancer.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey
Very
guys.
sad episode, everyone. So brace yourselves because this is emotionally gut-wrenching.
I would argue that this episode is one of the most clever in that it barely has any dialogue in it, but it tells you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good, yeah. Bundin, you start us off.
Yes. Okay. So we pick up where we had left off in the cave in 43, because 44 we followed Lauren after she left, but now we're following Kieran. So we're seeing him standing alone in this looming, cold, damp cave. And we get a close-up of his hand, and then we see his hand just clench. And then we see him punch the wall of the cave hard enough to dislodge rocks and scream. He's processing everything that happened as well, and he's mad at not only himself but also at Lauren, but mainly it's a bunch of things, in my opinion, that he's upset about right now. So this is the first time we've seen him let go and be okay, first time we see him let go arguably is 43, but this is him by himself processing emotions and just letting out pure rage. And it's crazy to see how the strength that this man has and just how hard he is on himself. What do you guys think? Yeah.
I completely agree. Bro, not even 10 seconds in, I'm already sad. Also I will say the hand strength that this man had. Lauren punched a boxing bag and she got bloodied knuckles. He punched a cave wall and he only got bruised.
Interesting the parallels with them then, because they both ended up just letting it out in terms of physically letting it out.
Yeah.
I did think that panel where he bangs the wall, isn't that dark material? Isn't that blood? I kind of assumed it was. Or is that moss or something?
Let's see.
The dark material. It could be moss. On my computer, it looks a little green, but the spot where he punched is black. So I think he'd punched the mossy wall and it dislodged some stuff, and now we're just seeing rock underneath it.
Yeah.
But it's so sad. I feel like it's not just rage. I think it's also rage at his helplessness at what he was forced to do, because that whole thing, he put on an act oh, I don't care. And then, he just lost the one person who had a little bit of respect for him and a little bit of friendship for him. And he's, I think, not just mad at the fact that he killed people that he doesn't want to kill, but also the fact that he has no control over his life. And the one thing that was finally good in his life was just stripped away because of the stupid PS and who knows what a situation and how he got involved there. And it's he just can't do anything right. So it's just, when you have no hope, okay, you're just sitting there dejected, but then one good thing and you start thinking maybe things can be better, and then that's ripped away from you.
I think what just compounds it too isn't even that it was something out of his control. It was him lashing out, but in obviously the complete wrong way. I think this episode, we're just starting to see it, shows just how much he hates himself as well, and hates how he how far he fell in, you were saying, Mindy, the one positive thing in his life that just started.
I think that's 100% true, that it's also mad at how did he let go and lose control like that and do that to the person that he's supposed to like. that he does
but
like.
also I think part of it is he's mad that he showed so much of himself in that as well, right? Because remember what snapped him out of it last time was him saying, I've always been like this.
Mhm.
That the entirety of 43 is him using Lauren's ability against her to make her think that he's the bad guy, right? But in that moment when he lost control and he lashed out at her, obviously he's mad for hurting her, but he's mad at himself for slipping up and kind of being vulnerable to her and showing her that part of him. I've always been like this. No, you weren't. And by doing that, he's not only showing that he's not a monster, but like if she sees that he's not a monster, then like it's like what was I she like he's gonna have to start believing it himself that he's not a monster, and I don't think he has the ability to process that right now, given everything, you know.
Yeah. And especially
So well said.
especially since what he just did, it just reaffirms everything he's been thinking, because like at this point in his head he has no one to blame but himself for what he's done.
Because like we said, he genuinely believes that he is a monster, he's a terrible person, right? But we know that's not really true as readers, so it's just hard to see him going through that.
Yeah.
Like what you said, I never thought of it from that perspective, but I completely agree with you that the psychological work that it takes to change your self-perception is incredible. And like I've mentioned this, I've mentioned it more in the Midnight Popular podcast, but my husband had a very abusive, neglected childhood, and he has a lot of issues from that. And like I see the amount of work it takes. He can't change his self-conception. I've been with him like 12 years, and I tell him all day long, you're amazing, you're great, you're wonderful, you're fantastic, you're smart, you're talented, blah blah blah. He doesn't go in. Like he cannot change the self-conception that he grew up with as a kid. And it's the amount of like work it takes to change your vision of yourself. It's incredible, and it's very hard. And I never thought of Kieran that way, and that it's hard for him to change his conception of it as a monster, because you would think that people want to feel good about themselves. You would think, yeah, of course people want to think, oh, I'm not a monster, I'm a good person. But it's hard for him, because first of all, then if he thinks, oh, I'm a good person, then he has to start reconciling what he's doing and actually looking at it. At this point, he probably wrote himself off, and he's like, I'm a bad person, I'm done for, I'm on the suicide mission now to take leader down, and I'll die, and I don't care, because I don't care about myself. No, I'm worthless anyway. But yeah, for him to believe in himself and have faith in himself, that would require a whole mental shift, and then his whole life would have to change, and he'd have to actually face himself and say, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And yeah, that would be very, very hard.
Yeah, and he's also living in denial right now, right? Because he sees he's not human. He has to think of himself as that way to do what he does. And if anything jeopardizes that, it kind of goes off. So it's part of why we see him doing this now.
Yeah, it's like in his head he's put a wall in between himself as Kieran and his job as the PH, because like as we've seen, like when he kills people, it just seems like he kind of disassociates a little bit, where he's just he's not there. And if he lets the wall down and he admits, no, I'm not a monster, then he's gonna have to let the wall down, and he's not ready to do that. He will break.
Yeah,
it's just interesting though, because he still has, like, the fact that he leaves the Hyacinth down means that he is remorseful. So it's like there's that little tiny crack that he allows himself, but not an inch more type of thing.
and that's only because their nation happens to have that as a political symbol as well, right? So he kind of like he's masking it, just like how he keeps himself in. That's a mask. His symbol is a mask as well.
Oh my gosh, that is so clever. It's amazing.
That's great. I love it. So in a way, the Hyacinths are like him.
So what was this called again? What was the name of this webtoon?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So yeah, we see him pull his fist away from the wall, and he left a sizable hole in the wall. This man probably punched trees or something to like get his fist that hard.
The calluses on this man's hands.
Mm-hmm. And then he walks over to the pond in the cave and he looks down at his reflection in the water. And his face, he's just kind of scowling. He's disheveled. He's got hair all in his face more so than usual. And he looks at himself in his eyes and then lifts his hand up to look at his hand. And then as he's looking down at his hand, he hears Lauren's words repeated to him in his mind. How the hell could you do this? And as he's looking at his hand, we kind of see it transition to bloody hands. And then Lauren's voice again is like, how can you even bear to live with yourself with so much blood on your hands? And then it's a montage of him killing. I believe this is from when he was at the tower. And then Lauren said words again, just how heartless are you? And it cuts to him dragging, when that flashback with the Chandelier Man, his face as he's dragging that body to be hanged upon the chandelier. And this is probably one of my favorite sequences in the entire comic because it visually gives us a lot of information, right? So he literally sees blood on his hands constantly. He can't see beyond being the monster that he's made himself to be, or they say he is, or they made him to be. And for him to be that way, he clearly has so much self-loathing and guilt over it that how can we see as a monster? That face that he has when he's dragging that body is not the face of a monster.
Actually, I thought it specifically too, I don't remember who it was, but mentioned like disassociating from the
Yes.
war that he does. I thought that specific scene where you see his eyes, and again, the eyes for this episode, I think are a really beautiful motif, just as a little window into his psyche in each moment. And in this particular one where you see very dull colors, blood on half his face, like he looks soulless, he looks dead inside. And I think the way that the authors portrayed that was really, really good. And again, I forget who mentioned this, it just symbolizes his disassociation from the horrible acts that he does.
Definitely.
You know, it's just, he just needs a hug in therapy and
Yeah.
Lord.
Just need it, man. God.
Dude, this man needs a lifetime of therapy. This is
One thing though, it's like him looking down at his hands. I think part of it as well, like we don't really, because I think this is after where I cut off. So actually, you know what, I'm gonna wait because that's after my cutoff. So we'll talk about that when we get to that. But
all right.
Just the symbol, like his hands as like tools of murder is just such a big motif, and just the hands covered in blood. It's just, they didn't need to go into exposition or anything. They just needed to show us those panels and we get it immediately. Just brilliant composition, storytelling, everything.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. And then after we see his face, we get the flashback to him hanging the man from the chandelier. And then he hears Lauren's voice again. It was stupid of me to believe you could be human even for a second. And then you cut back to the scene in 43. He is choking her, but it's a warped vision of it, where instead of seeing just like hand marks on her neck, he sees blood on her neck coming from his hands.
That is trauma.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? It's been a long time since I read Macbeth in high school, but I believe Lady Macbeth always has a vision of blood on her hands because of the guilt that she feels. So, for killing someone, I forgot.
Yeah, she got like a blood stain on her dress, and no matter how many times she washes it, it doesn't go away or something. Yeah, just the idea of like the hands being like, yeah, his hands are destructive and evil, and he kind of, it almost looks like he transferred that to her, like almost took her life with it.
Yeah, he kind of sees I guess in a way, maybe he kind of sees like he marked her, he like kind of tainted her in a way.
Or that, you know, him choking her was really like one step away from what he normally does to people, which is killing people. And
and it's just so removed for like we said, Lauren is like probably one of like the best things to happen in his life right now, because he's actually living again, and we know that he at least at this point likes her as a partner and as a person, as a confidant. But him doing that to her is kind of like reaffirming in his mind that he is a monster too. It's just like
that he'll ruin it with everybody. He'll never have a chance for a real friendship or relationship. And again, like not relationship, but like just any relationship with a human being.
Yeah. And like they've gotten closer since they were like, he's like, remember, if you slip up, I'll leave you for dead and stuff. They've gone beyond that at this point. So like, I don't even think the second she steps into the cave, I don't think he even intended to harm her or anything, but just went down that path where he couldn't control himself to do that. And it's just hurts.
Yeah, I think part of it too is the his sense of loss of control, because I can imagine with someone that has such restricted freedoms, they take great pride in the limited control that they do have, whether that's how they feel while they're killing someone or otherwise. And I have a feeling as well, this was also touched upon before, I think by, is it Bundin?
Yes.
By Bundin, when she mentioned that like he's angry at himself for losing control in front of Lauren. And we're just seeing this reflected again, that he's in this headspace that he's usually in for killing. At least that's the way I interpret it, with the blood and the fact that he tried to choke her. And part of his self-loathing comes from the fact, as it was mentioned, that he lost his sense of control.
This is sad. This is really sad.
This episode is a doozy.
It is. Because I also see like him and Lauren have two different types of anger, where Lauren, her anger is very just like impulsive, very hot-headed in nature. His is more cold and calculated and very just, I kind of see it as like a funnel to like, it's very directed. And what was my point again? Throughout the entirety of 43, it's just kind of her being like kind of the hot and him just being cold. And then with cold, it's more scary at times when they're mad, because you can kind of predict what an angry person is gonna do if they're yelling, screaming in your face. With him, you don't really know, and that's kind of, it can end up like this. And it's not fun. It's not fun stuff.
Also, Lauren's anger is externally directed often, and Kieran's is internally directed.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You can also kind of see it in the way they express their anger, where it's like, yes, they expressed it in similar ways, like once they were away from each other, like she had the punching bag, he had the wall, but Lauren just kept going and going at it. He did one punch and that was it.
And a scream.
Yeah, a punch and a scream and that was it. Lauren kept going until she had all of it gone.
Even she's not super psychologically healthy, but she's way better than him. She does at least understand that she has to get it out of her, but Kieran is so used to keeping everything inside and bottling it up, that like he doesn't even allow himself the release beyond one punch and scream, which is so sad also.
You know, you see him getting sucked back into the negative headspace of just his crimes and what he's done, and he can't really free himself of that. You can argue Lauren probably didn't really free herself of that. She just tired herself out to the point where she couldn't really be full of rage anymore. Which
Lauren's dialogue when she was punching, so she was like, you're, this was wrong, that person was wrong, that person was wrong. And she didn't blame herself until the end. At the end, she did take some responsibility and like do some self-reflection. But Kieran, like, her anger was, again, like I said, external. His anger was just directed at himself. Like, he hates himself so much.
Yeah, and I feel like with Kieran, Lauren is able to get most of it out and see what happened with her at the end. Kieran, he gets it out enough to where it's not bubbling over anymore, and then he's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done. So it's still very bottled up, and it's like here, and it's not a very healthy way to go about it.
Doesn't give himself any sympathy. Like, a lot of people blame themselves for something, like, oh, I procrastinated and do my homework. Then they'll say, hey, yeah, but I had a tough week, or like, I did, most of it, or like they'll self-soothe, and they'll, if they have a healthy response, they'll, have some self-castigation, but also some, a healthy acceptance of themselves. But Kieran doesn't do any self-soothing. He doesn't say, oh, Kieran, you were kidnapped. Oh, Kieran, you're being blackmailed. Oh, Kieran, don't worry.
Whatever it is, because we still don't know.
We don't know anything.
We're speculating. But Kieran doesn't do any self-soothing. He just hates himself. He doesn't give himself any slack at all. Like, he just blames himself for all the time.
The thing is, if he gave himself some slack, right, that would open him, like, that would probably break his mind a little bit at this point, like, he couldn't, if he took that deeper than he has it, because we know that deep down he regrets having to murder. He'd rather not. He doesn't want to do that. But if he did, like, fully accept that in his consciousness, like, fully, then he couldn't do what he does anymore. And he needs to do what he does to achieve his goals, which is just like, man, you're driven, but also you are emotionally handicapped, sir.
Yeah.
We don't know what his goal is, and presumably whatever it is, it's worth living for. But I have the feeling that, like, if he didn't have that goal, he would commit suicide or something. Like, he doesn't. Why would he want to live the life he's living?
Oh, goodness. Well, and then after we see that very warped version of what happened, we get him reaffirming in his head through Lauren, you're nothing but a monster. And then it cuts back to him looking at the water, and like, his reflection is darker than his eyes, and his eyes are borderline glowing. And he just, again, a very warped perception of himself, because like, he has glowing eyes and blood all over himself.
I think, again, it's just a window into how he sees himself, especially in that specific moment. Like that one scene when his eyes were really dull and he was disassociating. This is him, like, we can see in the reflection of the water that there's blood all over it, both his face and his hands. It's him reflecting internally, and we don't really see that a lot. And it's really beautifully done, where it's the eyes that are glowing, that something else is up. And it's really depressing to know just this is what he sees, like just the blood on his hands and on his face. And the self-reflection, as we were talking about, is really painful for him to dwell on.
He's literally reflecting. Not only I love that they use him literally looking at his reflection to show his internal reflection.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I guess the word reflection came from the word reflection, you know what I'm saying?
I keep thinking of the song from Mulan.
Yeah.
This when will
my reflection show
who I am inside.
Meanwhile, Kieran,
inside,
I got this down, buddy.
I got another one. Misdirection rhymes with reflection.
Okay,
I know
nice.
this might be like a step too far, but I just wanted to.
I was trying to wonder, like, what's the significance of his eyes glowing? And what I came up with, and let me know if you have other ideas, is that he sees himself as a monster. Often monsters' eyes are glowing, and it's like an indication of evil. So his eyes aren't red, that's like the classic evil glow. His eyes are blue, but I still think he thinks of himself as a monster who's, his vicious eyes, like,
It probably feels like he
Yeah.
doesn't need the red eyes. Like the
There's red all
monsterhood
over
is
him
in
already.
it's like physically he's a monster, like, so he doesn't need to change anything. That's why he doesn't look like his physically not monstrous. The only thing that's monstrous about him is the blood all over him and the abnormal glowing eyes, right? So that's all we needed for that. So like it just kind of shows he doesn't think that he needs to be like physically monstrous to be a monster, which is a theme that we see a lot in media, from like, you know, Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame, all of that stuff. So just another motif.
Yeah, it's one of the things I think about a lot. And I studied psychology in undergrad, and I remember one of my psychology professors saying that there's a lot of iffy things in psychology, things that are unclear. But he said there are several concepts that are very, very well tested and well proven, and one of them is that attraction is a very powerful feature, and that when people are attractive, people associate all sorts of positive traits with them, such as intelligence and leadership and talent and kindness. And it's just this complete, you know, it blinds people. And obviously the vice versa. Like I always notice that in movies and stories, I'm reading a fantasy book now, and the monsters, the demons, are always portrayed to be ugly and stinky and gross. And I'm like, if I ever write something, one of the things I would do is, you know, make the bad guys beautiful, because just to show like beauty is completely, you know, external and doesn't indicate anything about the person's insides. So.
Yeah, but we know that Kieran is both beautiful on the outside and inside, deep down. That is all we'll say about Kieran's looks in this episode. This is a sad episode.
Oh goodness.
Okay.
But yeah.
And then after you see the reflection, you can see just him looking at his hand. There's no blood anymore. It's just a hand again. And you can see he kind of grimaces and then puts his hand into a fist again. And then turns away from the pool. Just, he can't even look at himself anymore.
I wonder, what did he do next? Like, what's his way of calming himself down? You know, like, does he lie down and read a book? Does he go to sleep? Does he cry? Like, I don't think he cries, but
I don't think
about
he
his
cries.
ideals.
that.
Like,
No,
probably
we-
thinks about the end goal, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
No, well, this is where like me forgetting like the entire plot.
Oh,
But we know what he does to Cobb. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not.
oh wait.
I mean,
Hold on.
they implied it already, kind
Did they?
of.
Yeah.
With,
Because that's why I wanted to do the kids. I
right.
wanted to
Oh
just-
yeah, we do know. Okay, one second.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
Okay,
Wait,
Yeah,
we do?
we know about it.
Wait.
oh wait, they don't show that one. We gotta wait till like 54 for that one.
Uh,
Yes, I don't
Wait,
think
hold
so.
on.
that was like the one thing that I felt really proud of myself for finding.
oh yeah,
I,
that's
I
right,
think we can talk about it because he, you know, Lauren sees what he does in his home,
Yeah.
and that happened already. We don't see like a ton of it, but we see some. I
They
think
give it enough of a weight that you kind of, as a reader, infer like you can figure it out that you know that is like something that's very personal to him,
Mhm.
and like probably a coping mechanism, something to do to bring him back to himself. So let's talk
Yeah,
about
go
it a
ahead.
little
Yeah,
bit.
let's
Why
do
not?
it. Let's do it.
Can we like just do a little spoiler warning? Because like, okay.
Yeah.
So spoiler warning, there we do know what Kieran does to cope, and specifically it's drawing. And that may have been, that's not like the big spoiler. What is the fact that one of his internal dialogues later down the line in the story, he says specifically that he likes to capture human moments and moments that make him remember like what it is to be human and remind him of humanity. And again, heavier spoiler, we see drawings of Lauren, for example, and one of them as well. It's a little bit further in, I'm jumping ahead. We actually see a drawing that he does of the kids when he gives them money, and specifically that little light coming into their eyes at this, you know, gift from a stranger.
Mhm.
And yeah.
It's so depressing.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character. I want him to be happy.
I know. I see no happiness in this future. That's the problem. Oh.
Sad. Very sad.
I
Also,
swear.
him just grimacing as well before he like clenches and moves on. It's just like
Oh.
we never see him that emotional.
Yeah.
Like, he's always has his like act on, or he's angry or whatever, but not like this. This is
Yeah.
just rage, but he's containing it now, like we said, with his unhealthy coping mechanisms. It's just like, other than the drawing is probably good, but everything else.
I think that grimace is like more hopelessness, where he's like, "Ugh, there's no point in ruminating about this. I can't change who I am. There's no point in sitting here and being upset." And he stalks away because he doesn't see a solution to, sitting there and thinking about it. Like, there's nothing, it's not going to help him. Ugh, poor guy.
Damn. If I had to sum up this episode in 2 words, it would be self-hatred.
Pain.
Pain.
This is brutal.
Oh, goodness. Also, I just want to point out the track in this episode,
oh my God.
Regrets. It's the same track that came up in episode 3 when they first met, and I'm just like, bruh, I am out here hurt, and I am left out in the frozen cold, and I am severely hurt and in pain.
Yeah.
It's like, the scene from The Godfather, like, oh, look how they massacred my boy. That's me.
But the authors are totally eating that up.
I know they are.
Funny little like clip of, I don't even remember. I don't know if it's the right one, but it's like a mug with the tears in my
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
That is an actual product that you can buy, I think.
Oh my God. They loved tormenting us. Is it my turn to pick it up?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so now we're switching scenes. It's raining because it's a dark day.
Angst.
May as well be sad. The world is sad.
It would feel really off if it was all sunshine and happiness outside, right? That would be a really big tonal shift, I think. So, consistency and tone is something that I think Purple Hyacinth can pride itself on. The exception being whenever Lady A and the Butler roll up.
I love those two. And then we see.
I'll hate Lady A, the Butler. Well, like
were you converted? Did Folk convert you? Say.
No, I'll tell you. What was that episode? Maybe it was 92. It was the episode where she did something completely inappropriate. That was like, okay, that's it, Lady A.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that was.
Yeah. I forget about that episode. Okay.
That was the episode that we did together, right? 12.
No, it was way later. It's a later episode.
Oh, is it
like somewhere in the 90s?
Yeah, 90
Oh,
something.
yeah, I think it's like 95, 95 or 94.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay. Well, back on topic. We're gonna bring it back to Kieran.
Yeah.
So we see Kieran walking down the street, and he encounters a couple of kids, and the kids are asking him for some pennies, and he kind of like glances away because it looks like this is maybe his normal behavior to just kind of ignore it. But then he kind of glances back at them and reconsiders. We then see him giving them some money, and we see this really cute scene of these two kids just kind of lighting up at the gift from a stranger. And it seems like a really innocuous moment, but it does mean a lot to Kieran, and you will find out later why and how. I don't know how else to say it, but it does, like, that scene does come up again.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing. When the little boy says, like, "Sir, a penny for the poor, please," I'm just like, I quote that all the time. When I'm just like, can I have $1? I'm just like, "Sir, a penny for the poor, please."
No, you know what my friends and I do? It's could I have some more, please?
Or the Oliver twist.
Yeah.
I do that when I go and get dinner from my mom. Like seconds, like, I want some more, please.
The fact that there's like little kids on the streets, like starving in the rain, not properly, dressed, is horrifying. Like, I live in New Jersey, and I grew up in New York City, whatever. but like, and I would see homeless people, and it would like drive me crazy. It would bother me a lot. And at some point when I grew older, I realized that a lot of them have mental health issues, and like that's kind of like the reason they're on the streets. And I understand, like, and we do have shelters. Like, okay, I don't know so much about the system, but like I know that, you know, our country at least tries to help people. But like kids on the street, like it's just inexcusable. It's horrifying.
Yeah. Also, I just have two things. One, like him kind of deciding to pay and give them some money. I feel like that's kind of him trying to get some penance, you know, kind of like
Atone a little.
like atoning for what he did with just a small act of kindness, right? Probably subconsciously, but we don't know. Maybe he's done this before. Like maybe after he kills, he goes and does something that's like charitable to kind of feel like this for that, you know. And then the fact that when he gives them the money, they're like, "Oh, thank you so much, sir. You're a real gentleman." And we're just like,
Yeah.
No, meanwhile, Kieran in his head, oh, if only you knew, child.
you
I
switched
actually
from a
think-
child.
I don't think the reason that he gave them was like a consciously seeking penance. It seems to me
Yeah.
that he's like irritated. I think that he is compelled, and he has compassion for them and pity for them without even wanting to necessarily, because we know that like he tries to close himself off from emotions and from feeling any humanity and goodness, because again, that would make him have to look at himself and in a different light, and that's too hard for him. But he still is drawn. He still has that spark within him of goodness that we all see that he doesn't see about himself. And that's what, you know, just forces him to give money to those kids, because he pities them, even though he wishes he could be like consistently bad.
You know, I agree. Like him, like the whole penance thing is like a subconscious thing, but also subconscious thing is like he is a good person. Like but he can't see that in himself right now. And it's just like,
I
The
feel like,
line, we need the famous line from episode 86. Well, which is okay, I'll say it, no, because nobody knows who it was, but like
no context.
I know you don't believe in yourself, but like let me believe in you for you.
oh.
We believe in you.
We believe in you, Kieran.
We believe in you. But, like,
Basically,
bruh, I feel like Kieran, like his mindset, I feel like in his head, it's easier. It's like definitely it's easier to believe I'm just a bad person, and it would be easier if he actually was. For him, at least, it would be much easier if he was just truly a bad person. Then he wouldn't be conflicted. He wouldn't have all this self-hatred. He wouldn't have to feel nearly as much as he does. But it's these little things that truly show you what kind of person he is.
Agreed.
Amazing.
Yeah, so then we see the three kids kind of like their backs huddled over the hat, and Kieran continuing to walk away in the rain.
Mm.
And there's a bit of white space, and we see him approach a cathedral and start to walk into the cathedral. Then we see him looking towards the altar, and we see these really nice stained glass. We see this really nice stained glass by the altar. And specifically, for a brief moment, we see both a chandelier. It looks like it has some cobwebs on it, as well as a hole in the roof, kind of insinuating that this is a rundown cathedral. It hasn't been repaired in likely years. And just a really interesting setting for him to be walking into. One of the statues that they highlight as well, it looks like it's, I don't know if it's the same religion or not. I would assume it's Mary and Jesus, but I mean,
It makes me wonder, right? Because I'm Catholic, so I'm accustomed to this kind of imagery. This is literally what we see in churches and cathedrals, right? So I'm like, is Jesus a thing in this world?
Like, bruh, do they have different gods in this world?
to be determined.
Yes.
But what I thought was
I don't think religion, I think it's just a general stand-in for like religious concepts. I don't think the particular religion matters, but I think it's the, you know, the symbolism and the ideas we all associate with this.
Yeah.
And what I think
definitely.
is super fascinating is the fact that there's ivy growing on the statue. Again, just showing that people don't go here to worship a higher being. And again, in the next panel, as we see Kieran continuing to walk inside, there's cracks in the floor, there's plants growing. It's overall run down.
When I
Why?
first saw him going into the cathedral, I kind of like didn't even notice how it went down was, and I was like, I was so hopeful. I was like, wow, is he going to church to like, relieve himself, to pray, to atone? And like, I was so excited. I was like, he's doing some healing. He's finally now. And then I was like, oh shizzle when
Oh,
I saw the
God.
end. I was like,
Oh.
I
God.
just thought of something. Oh
What?
God, I kind of hate that I thought of this. This is not gonna
What?
like get y'all pissed or anything. It's just like a personal thing. So I went to Catholic high school, which was a very interesting experience. But like one thing that they always told us, because it's all girls Catholic school, they're like, your body is a temple, like all that stuff, right? So if you were like thinking like, oh, he's going to this church, like the idea of the church being run down could be like linked to like
Oh.
him being like he himself feels like he's like broken down and stuff as
Mhm.
well. Probably not that true, but just at least sticking with the general theme of things not being okay and gloomy and sad.
Yeah.
Mhm. I also kind of see it as like typically you would think of a church as like kind of like, oh, place of worship, a place of kind of like hope, and then it's run down, decrepit, uncared for. It's like kind of the state of the city. It's like absence of hope. There is none.
Also, and it's also a moral code. Like religion gives you a very specific way of life that is, I think it might be rooted in Christianity, but I think the general meaning is very true, where it's do unto your neighbor what you would do to yourself. And the fact that, like you guys said, the temple's run down, there's no peace, like there's no moral code, and it's a complete reflection on how Kieran sees himself.
Probably you can even say art college itself. People.
I think you
Oh,
might.
you cut out for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be a reflection of Art Hollis if the people stop valuing morality and don't work on themselves to be better people, then an unjust system results.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next scene, we just see him pushing back this curtain. He's going into one of the cubicles for confession.
Yeah.
And we see him just kind of sitting down, not really looking at anything. And the next panel is when we see one of the members from the Phantom Scythe kind of pull up next to him.
When all our hopes were dashed.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
If only
And
there
I
were an
saw
actual
that.
priest
I saw
there.
that messenger.
I know. I'm like, bruh.
Uh,
Come on, give him a fist bump or something, please.
Fire.
I know.
Fire.
I had to put it in. I'm sorry.
We'll get into that another
Okay,
time.
later,
But
later.
yeah, inside jokes, man. For those of you who know, you know.
so
You
yes,
don't want to know, but
Yeah, you don't, but like if you know, you know. Anyways.
yeah, so it is the perversion of everything that we want. A confession booth is supposed to be a place of security, of safety, of trust, and instead it's the exact opposite. It's this guy, the messenger, who just is here to ruin Kieran's life even more with more horrible things, and it's just the opposite. It's completely warped, and it's just so poignant and so well done. And Kieran now says, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." And he's smirking while he says that. And I'm like, Kieran, you didn't have to smirk. The messenger is not looking at you. Like, why are you putting
never
on this act?
Yeah,
It's
he's
not
got
about that.
to.
he has to do it for himself too, remember?
Yeah.
And also you can kind of, with people, you can kind of hear when they have kind of like a smile or a smirk in their voice.
Yeah.
Like he's got to put on the facade, otherwise it ain't gonna work.
Yeah, and obviously the words he says are completely tragic, because really, he really does think, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned," but he has to pretend that he doesn't care and that he's just flippantly using those words. And has to pretend that he has no morals in front of the messenger, but like really when his like soul is screaming, yes, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's so sad.
It just reminds me of when I was in Catholic high school and they would announce that they're doing confessions and you just go to confession to get out of class, which is kind of bad, but you know what?
Oh, dang.
Yeah. The priest did used to actually give me fist bumps because he knew my dad, so that was funny. But
Nice.
yes.
So the messenger tells him, the leader is pleased with your work from yesterday. Those 4 were threats to the prosperity of the Phantom Scythe, which is, by the way, classic like royalty language where like, oh, they're a threat to the prosperity of our kingdom. So it's so ironic that the Phantom Scythe is now adopting the terms of the people that they claim they want to take down, because that's honestly what I think happens with a lot of idealistic terrorist organizations. Start out idealistic, they're like, oh, we're going to improve the system, we'll make it better, and then they just end up being the next system, and it's usually often worse than what they were replacing. Ugh, so stupid.
Extremism.
Yeah, my husband is very conservative emotionally, and like over the years I've come to recognize that idealism, and I was very idealistic when I met him, idealism is so dangerous because it makes you emotional and not rational. And anyway, I distrust idealism a lot now. You know, everything has to be tempered. Anyway, like you can't be too conservative. Okay, why am I doing my words on life? Let's not do that. Sorry. And he's like, I need to be eliminated as soon as possible. And poor Kieran, that expression on his face when he says this, he says, of course he's satisfied. I set a new record at the tower. And he looks so bitter when he says that.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
You know, he knows, like, he hates that they're proud of him for doing what he despises. It's just so heartbreaking.
It's we don't like seeing this. This is not fun.
This is not fun, but also the angst. It's great. It's great. That's what I keep telling myself anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, life without pain is also a very boring life. And, you know, it's same for stories, right? We want stories to have a meaning, and they don't have meaning if they don't have powerful negative and positive emotions. You can't have only positive, powerful emotions. They're only powerful in contrast with negative emotions. Otherwise, it's meaningless.
No, I tend to think of this quote. I forget where it's from, but it's like, thank you for the pain. I need it for my art.
Yeah. I thought about this a lot over the years because over time I realized I kind of have like the tortured artist personality, and something I also inherited from my grandmother, but she had, and yeah, it's you know, it comes with like a lot of ups and downs emotionally, but like at the end of the day I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't want to be like a boring person, because I feel like I wouldn't experience the joys and the highs that I experience are, I think, more than, you know, a person who doesn't experience the lows that I experience, and I wouldn't change that. So
Okay.
Definitely relate as well. You hear a lot of secrets as a physician, and even as a med student, I heard a lot of secrets and a lot of shared pain. And one of the things that has brought me comfort over the years is being able to share, you know, my own painful experiences to make them a little bit more manageable for the patient. So completely agree with everything that has been said already.
Yeah.
So Kieran says, no other assassin has ever made it up to the 15th floor and back alive. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of floors to hack.
That's a lot of dead
stairs.
guards.
A lot of stairs.
That flex though.
Not to brag.
Not to brag at all.
But he's not bragging. He's so bitter about what he had to do, because he is obviously very talented, but like he's using his talent for bad things, and he uses his talent for wonderful things, but he's forced to use the best part of him for the worst part of the world.
Yeah, I just keep thinking the 15th floor, god dang, that's a lot of dead guards. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the messenger is kind of like praising him for like doing horrible things. Once again, you've proven your resourcefulness and reliability. Leader already has a new mission for you, Purple Hyacinth. And he's like, already, how exciting, which is, of course, the biggest sarcastic phrase ever uttered out of his mouth.
He ain't even smirking at this point. He's just like, great, exciting.
Right.
Please.
Can't drum up the passion to smirk.
No.
And the
No.
emphasis is on how exciting as well. So we know that there's a tonal change.
Yeah.
Are these like messengers like dumb? Like, do they not realize he's being sarcastic?
I mean, I don't think they care as long as the job is
Yeah.
done, you know? Like it's like
Yeah,
you don't have to enjoy it, just get it done. I think that's the mentality
Yeah.
at least.
Because honestly, I feel like I really don't feel like they particularly care about the emotions of their quote unquote employees.
I agree, but you know what? That is so dumb because they can't tell that the Purple Hyacinth is plotting a revenge under their very eyes. They are not looking. I'm sorry, but it is pretty obvious that like he is an unhappy employee, and you should pay attention and notice because those employees are gonna come kill you, like literally. So
I don't know if it's that obvious that he like right now that he is being like, oh god, really, like probably they've had more trouble with other assassins, and Kieran has proved his reliableness and like his talent and his ability to murder people a lot. So I think they're kind of more chill with him being kind of because why would a good person do all of this, right? So I think he's got kind of gotten the perfect cover for himself, and also we find out later that he knows the consequences of not doing the job.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
like on one hand, they don't really care because he's good at his job, and like since he's like the best that they have, like what's he gonna do? Like he goes to any authority, he's screwed. And then, but on the other hand, like we see later, he's kind of, it's a recurring theme. It seems like a recurring theme with him to like get punished by them. It seems like he's acted out of line a few times before. So I think like they'll like we saw back in episode 5, they gave him a warning where it's just like, you may be the leader's best, but he's still watching you. Try not to upset him. So it just kind of seems like he's a bit of like a I don't know the word for it exactly, just kind of like their trouble child, basically.
Their teenager.
It's put it.
no, I do think that maybe, the fact that they don't really pay attention to the emotional state of their employees also just shows how like they're just heartless people and not emotionally intelligent. Like to me, it's just more of an indication of how corrupt and rotten they've become in the core and lost sight of their ideals.
Yeah. And that's what you were saying before too, the fact that they're so focused on their ideals and they have this quote unquote perfect vision for the future, when in fact they're not even taking care of their own. It just shows how blind the Phantom Scythe is.
Definitely.
So he says, you will find further instructions in the envelope hidden underneath your bench, which Kieran takes out. Contents to be burned immediately after reading. He's like, amazing. And what is this mission about? As he opens up the paper and we see, the Phantom Scythe logo on the side. And he says, the leader wants you to find the traitors hiding under the name of Loon and kill them.
His face.
Another face of pure shock.
Which is very rare that we have genuine emotion. And this is
Yeah.
also like one of those rare times we see real emotion from him.
Yeah, like this entire episode, he's been kind of just rage or like repressing it. And now it's just like, he's like, okay, none of that anymore. Because he's just like, what?
Like,
oh, shit.
Yep. And the messenger's like, the leader expects results shortly, Purple Hyacinth.
Oh.
And, he's gone. He closes the window.
The thingy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Kieran's just left there staring at it. And he's like, and I also have to. And he doesn't say what, he also has to. He sets his mouth in a line and he says, I know someone who won't be happy about this. that look on his face kind of also reminds me of the Chandelier Man look when he's like dead inside.
But his eyes have some brightness still,
Yeah.
obviously, but he's just kind of like, that's basically him.
Yeah.
Also, we can tell who the someone he's talking about is.
yeah.
Am I right?
I mean, yeah.
What's interesting too, I don't think any of us really thought that he was even going to think about killing, or first of all, confessing that he's Loon, and then second of all, kill Lauren. I feel like we get really good indications in his facial expression, where he's just so shocked. And I don't know, like you just don't, it doesn't cross your mind that he's even contemplating it. I think the moment he heard, it's more like, I know someone won't be happy about this, is more like, this is a conversation that we need to talk about to solve together when we just had this falling out. Like, that's the way I read it. So I thought that was really interesting too, that he doesn't necessarily, like the way I interpret it, at least, he never entertains the thought of coming clean or killing Lauren.
Yeah.
Also, I'm wondering, like, I still don't think we know what's the second thing he has to do. I don't think we know.
we
we
do
did
know
find
the
out. We
second
did find out.
We do know the second thing, Mindy.
We do
It
know
was the
second-
cliffhanger.
Glasses too.
Oh, that. Never mind. Okay, I got mixed up with the time frame. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Not gonna lie,
Yeah,
when I
okay.
got to that point, it was just
That
like,
makes sense.
Like
Ah.
jaw drops.
when you get to it, when you find out, you know why he's just looking like,
You're just like,
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
sorry.
we-
I forgot that this was before that happened.
yeah.
good.
Imagine if you let that slip. That would have been so fun. I'm glad we haven't done that yet, though. I don't think anybody's
True,
mentioned
we
that
haven't.
for this entire time. So that's good. Well done.
There's a lot of reasons why Lauren's upset.
Yeah. God dang.
Oh gosh.
Lauren is just never gets any happy news.
Or sleep.
Or sleep, yeah. First, she got one night of sleep in Kieran's apartment. That was it.
That was
That was
We
it.
can't. I can't. I feel like we can't mix those emotions. Like bringing up that episode and this episode. There's just like
No,
water.
but it's the perfect time.
I
Look
mean,
at how far they come in trust. Look what happened.
What episode are we talking about again? Sorry.
38.
Oh, God, why are you giving me depression again? Jesus.
Because it's fun.
Like to quote one of our friends on Discord, when I updated my fanfic right before the season 2 finale, I was in the happy times with the rainbows and the bunnies, and then I got yoinked down back to reality, and that was not. We were so good, the Loki fans. We were so good, and now we're here.
We did not realize how good we had it.
No.
We got too comfortable.
F and Soph giveth, they take it away.
Indeed.
And sometimes like slap you in the face, punch you in the gut, like while they're at it, you know.
Might as well kick you while you're down as well.
Yeah.
And then we keep coming back.
What? Yeah, we do.
Speaking of F and Soph, the author's note for this week is: the design of the church almost made me want to strangle F with the vines she made me draw. Is this me secretly calling out for help? Yes.
Like the whole like out of all the emotions of this episode, that's what you have to talk about.
I mean, Soph had to like do that church, right? That's so much detail in that
That's a
church.
lot.
I'm really happy she got to reuse that church.
Yeah.
Eventually, we won't say when, but eventually.
To be happy, it was not a happy moment, but
No, it was not. Actually, you could argue that kind of hurt more than what happened in this church scene. Alas.
there'll be redemption and like there'll be something. Lauren and Kieran are gonna get married in that church. Got it. Yes. Yes.
God.
They'll
Oh
fix
my
it and get married there.
His first kill and his wedding.
I don't think
I thought that first kill was in like an estate. I didn't know
Yeah,
that
I
was
thought
in
his
the
first
church.
kill was somewhere else because it has a different window.
Never mind. I just saw the chandelier.
Yeah, because like I remember I analyzed the chandelier back when I first got. I was like, "Is this the same chandelier?" It was not.
I mean, I'm like in Kieran's apartment. I didn't mention this when we did this episode, but one of the things is like, you know, the door that's locked that Lauren tries to get
Yeah.
into. Between the immediate two panels, it's different doorknobs. I was like, that annoyed me, but I was just like, Soph does so much for us. It's fine. It's fine. She's allowed to mess up.
No, I felt that too. I felt that too because like there's this one panel where it's like there's 4 doors in his house: the bathroom, the bedroom, his secret door, and the front door. One of the panels, there's only like the bedroom and the secret door, and I'm like, what happened to the bathroom? So
Did we talk about the chair in that episode? The chair?
I'm at 38 or 30. That wasn't in 37, 38.
Yeah, because there's a painting that we still haven't seen.
Well, that's not.
That's later. That's later.
Oh, I thought it was when it was at his apartment.
No, that's
in
the
the second
episode
time.
with the kids.
Yeah, that's
later.
the kids. The 54. It's on 54.
It's been a hot minute since I've reread this webcomic. I am so sorry.
It's alright, Sam. It's alright.
Oh man.
Well, do we have final thoughts on this episode besides for tears and pain?
Just me just playing the sound of silence constantly, just staring at the wall. That's it.
So, my final thoughts. If you ever want to know what self-hatred feels like, read this episode.
Yeah, no, I think they did a really wonderful job of just showing Kieran's internal struggles. I'm sorry. I hope things go better for you.
Yeah.
If not, you can always read people's fanfics where they do.
There you go.
God. Just give them a happy ending. Shit. That's all we need.
Indeed.
Yes, please.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was a fantastic episode. It was great. Love it. It was terrible, but I loved it, you know?
Hurts in a good way.
Indeed.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
We'll catch you all later.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey. Oh.
Thank you so much to my career patrons: Susie, Lady Libris, Lily, Jenny, Haley, Maria, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Joe, Rochelle, Saucy Talgos, Meg, and Rose, Priya, Alexa, Misty, Laura, Joanne, Patty, Jen, Imelda, Esther, I'm Watching You, Taurus, Poppy Seed, Marie, Jen, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, D, and Kay. Your support is truly appreciated.